Welcome to 3 Minutes With, where we meet researchers and their precision agriculture projects. Today we have Rob Bramley from CSIRO to talk to us about the Future Farm project.
Thanks, Nicole. So what I want to do today is to make some introductory comments about Future Farm as a lead into a series of videos that you'll see from different members of the Future Farm team. They'll be providing videos to SPAA subsequently. I guess everybody's familiar with the idea of the 4 R's, the notion of putting the right rate of the right product in the right place at the right time. But I think we sometimes should be asking ourselves whether 4 R's are enough. So for example, do we have the right equipment? Are we pursuing the right objective, whether that be in terms of yield or quality or both? And how do we know what right is? Do we have the right data? Does this data have to just come from on-farm? Are we making use of it at the right scale? How do we think about growers' risk in implementing the 4 R's? And would some on-farm trials be useful to assist with getting things right? And I guess that fundamentally Future Farm is a project that seeks to tackle some or all of these questions in different combination. And in particular, the project aims to re-examine and improve the way in which soil and crop sensors and data from elsewhere are used to inform decisions about input management. And also, we're particularly interested in automating the process from data acquisition through its analysis to the formulation and implementation of decision options. The initial exemplar use case is nitrogen fertilizer management in wheat, largely because nitrogen fertilizer accounts for such a significant proportion of the input costs of production. But Future Farm's not a nitrogen project per se, it's more about the use of the sensors and the automation. And contrary to popular rumour, it's not about robotics. I guess the other thing that's important to say about Future Farm is that it's a collaborative and co-funded effort involving input from CSIRO, the Universities of Sydney, Southern Queensland, Agriculture Victoria, the Queensland University of Technology and the GRDC. Now, if we think about a typical agronomic decision, such as a decision as to whether or not to apply fertiliser, we might typically use our mechanistic knowledge to identify a series of agronomic parameters, and measurements of these are coupled together in some sort of decision support system to help us arrive at our decision. But since the advent of various ag technologies and precision agriculture, we now have a range of sensors that we use to help make these measurements of agronomic parameters. And whereas some of these sensors are easy to calibrate, things like yield monitors or soil pH or moisture sensors, some of the other ones are not so easy to calibrate. And I guess a lot of effort has been put into generating calibrations of these various sensors to make measurements of these agronomic parameters. But the question arises as to whether or not that's the most sensible approach. Meanwhile, some service providers are using some of these sensors just as singular inputs to a decision and trying to generate recommendations about decisions without considering whether or not more information would be desirable. And in Future Farm, one of the underpinning ideas is that most agronomic decisions are really multivariate issues. So they need to factor in multiple inputs. So in other words, multiple soil or crop sensors. We might draw on data that's historical from on-farm or broader publicly available data, such as weather data or soil data, and indeed crop models. And a second important underpinning idea for Future Farm is that some on-farm experimentation could make a key contribution in making our decision much more site-specific, which is obviously what we want to do in a precision agriculture context. So instead of drawing on or following this kind of pathway to a digital decision, in Future Farm, what we're doing instead is saying, well, we'll use our mechanistic model to choose some appropriate sensors. And the ones that are easy to calibrate, we'll continue to put effort into calibrating. But the ones that are more difficult to calibrate, we won't worry so much about calibration, and we'll just use the data that they generate, and we'll combine all of that in some sort of data-driven model that's further informed by some on-farm experimentation and also data acquired from off-farm sources, and perhaps at a scale much broader than the whole farm, and use those various different data sources to derive a sensor-based, data-driven and targeted decision. And what you'll see in the following series of videos is various members of the Future Farm project team talking about research that they're doing that addresses particular parts of this framework in order to enable us to come to this sensor-based targeted decision. So I'll leave it at that. Hopefully you gain some value from this series of videos, and ultimately gain some value from the Future Farm project overall. So thanks very much.
Welcome to 3 Minutes With, where we meet researchers and their precision agriculture projects. Today, we have Andre Colasso from CSIRO to continue the Future Farm series.
Thanks, Nicole. Hi, everyone. I'm here to talk to you about Future Farm, and more specifically about our field program and the scientific approaches we're following for the development of digitally based decision support systems for nitrogen in cereal crops. So Future Farm established a network of on-farm trials since 2018 in collaboration with farmers. And as you can see, our trials are spread across Australia with the CSIRO team looking after the Western and the South Australian trials. And we have also partners with our Agriculture Victoria and University of Sydney looking after the Eastern sites. I'm more particularly involved in the South Australian trials. Our trials are based on large-scale, spatially distributed experimental designs, which are implemented and monitored using precision agriculture tools, such as control traffic, variable rate equipment, and yield monitoring, for example. And this map here illustrates one of our trials where we have a nitrogen-rich strip and nitrogen-minus plots spread across the paddock to create a range of nitrogen availability for the crop. And as you can see, these strips are crossing the different soil zones in the paddock, which were previously mapped based on digital soil surveys. We monitored these trials throughout the season using remote and proximal crop sensing. We also have soil moisture sensors spread across the paddock. And we're collecting plant and soil samples at these target sampling locations for sensor calibration. So we can build this spatial database with the different information layers across the paddock. So the overall idea is that these trials are designed to explore the natural variability found in the field, so we can make observations of crop response to nitrogen and collect information across a range of crop and soil conditions within each trial. So the different research groups in Future Farm are exploring a range of approaches for a sensor-based nitrogen decision. And at the moment, I'm particularly involved in 3 approaches. So the first one, we're aiming to obtain a response function based on the sensor value and the response and the on-farm experimentation. And as you can see here in this example, the mid-season NDVI response was quite similar with the final crop response in terms of nitrogen. And they're both indicating a similar optimum nitrogen level. So we're now exploring the use of soil moisture information to increase the reliability of this approach across different rainfall environments. And the second approach is looking at nitrogen dilution and how the critical nitrogen level varies depending on crop biomass. So we're looking into different sensors to predict both crop biomass and nitrogen concentration. And we're looking into LiDAR and reflectance sensors for the prediction of those crop features. So we can use this framework here for a nitrogen decision. And finally, we're developing also non-mechanistic sensor-based algorithms that put together a range of information from a range of sources, including sensors and off-farm data as well, and on-farm experimentation. So we put all this together and calibrate it directly against an optimal nitrogen decision. So I'm more particularly involved in the on-farm data, such as the sensing data and the on-farm experimentation, and other colleagues are looking into the off-farm data, such as weather data and remote sensing information at the regional level as well. So we believe that by exploring a range of options and approaches, we'll be better positioned to deliver value to farmers that might have different data availability and different risk profiles in different farm operation and production systems as well. So watch this space to find more about our results, and thank you for watching.
Welcome to 3 Minutes With, where we meet researchers and their precision agriculture projects. Today, we have Mario Fajardo to continue the Future Farm series. He's from the University of Sydney.
Thank you, Nicole. So, as some of you have heard on the previous presentations, I'm part of this multi-institutional project called Future Farm, and I'm going to talk specifically about bringing on-farm data to bear on nitrogen decisions. So, as a background, just to revise what the Future Farm project is, it's a program of field trials across the 3 regions of the GRDC to evaluate a combination of different proximal sensing technologies, historical on-farm data, historical data in general from the farms, and public available off-farm data, rather satellite information, rather proximal sensing methods, etc., and other various data fusion methods to better predict the response of nitrogen in the different agroecological regions of Australia. So that's the main background of the project. I'm just going to focus in a particular thing, which is bringing off-farm information, more specifically satellite information. As many of you know, we use NDVI for representing or characterizing the plant status. It's a widely known index, and we have seen that it has a high relation with the nitrogen and with the plants. The problem is that NDVI is just a qualitative measure of vegetation density, and it's not a quantitative measure of how much vegetation is present. It's just an index. Instead of leaf area index, tells you how much leaves you have per square meter. So we have this satellite made by NASA, which offers a worldwide product every 4 days. And we see that for example, in the Amazon, we have a lot of leaves, and then in the center of Australia, we have less leaves. So it's a good proxy of how much plants we have. But for precision agriculture, we have a little problem that the product is just too coarse. So for example, in this trial in South Australia, it's part of our core sites. We can't use it for precision agriculture. So what are we doing is taking the best of different constellations of satellites publicly available for the community. We take the MODIS product, which has a low spatial resolution of 500 meters, as we saw, but it has a high temporal resolution. It's every 4 days worldwide. And we take, on the other hand, the Sentinel constellation, which it's offered by the European Space Agency, which doesn't offer a leaf area index product, but it has a high spatial resolution of 10 meters. And how we fusion those together via a machine learning approach that, of course, I won't present in detail now. So now I'm going to show you one practical example of what are we doing. This is a publicly available data set in a publicly available software as well. So we see that in this trial, our input, this will be the MODIS leaf area index, which has a resolution that, of course, is not useful for us. However, if we see our predictions, we can see that these lines over here are n-rich strips, and the other small ones are the n- strips, and we can see that if we predict in time, we have a response that is useful for predicting our plant status in time. So we see these are leaf area index predictions using both satellites constellations. So hopefully we will present these results in the future and in the real. Otherwise, it will be via Zoom and yes. So if you have any questions, here are my contact details. I'm part of the Precision Agriculture Laboratory of the University of Sydney, and I'm working in the Future Farm project with all these institutions. And yes, thank you very much, and see you soon.